A good lead follows his follow. I first heard that from the amazing instructor and performer, salsa in the salsa scene, Luis Aguilar. And I did not realize how much this would stick with me for years of my dancing to help me with my dancing as a follow, as a dancer, but also understanding the lead and understanding what both of our roles are, but also in my life outside of dance, like in partnerships in dance, but partnerships outside of dance, like in relationships as well. And I was so excited to share this with you today because it really links very well with my last video on masculine and feminine energies. So I was saying that we all have masculine and feminine energies in us. And if you identify more as a masculine energy type of person, and sometimes that can be male defined, not all the time, but then there are certain ways that you show up in your life and in your dancing, and that if you identify more as like a feminine energy person, then you show up in your dancing and your life in certain ways. And if that polarity exists between the masculine and feminine, that's when the dancing, but also like relationships in outside of dancing, work really well. And that's when the passion and the balance and the fun, like the joy of it, comes in. And in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the balance within ourselves, because we can carry a little bit more masculine or a little bit more feminine in ourselves. But like I said, we have both. So I feel like what Luis Aguilar said about a good lead follows his follow, I feel like a part of that is actually speaking to, even if he didn't mean to connect this, is speaking to this aspect of leads having also feminine in them. Like we have both energies in us. And when a lead is tapped into his feminine, he can also really tap into a feminine follows energy. And he can understand what she needs in different moments, in different transitions in the dance, and also in his own leading to make it smooth and effortless and make it more enjoyable for both of them. So what exactly does following your follow actually look like or feel like? Well, in my opinion, when you're following a follow, you might have an idea in your head of what you wanted to execute, what moves you wanted to do, where the next move is going to take you guys. But depending on the follow's level and what she might do, I mean, her level might be higher, or just she's very creative and kind of wants to, accentuate things or put in some little ornamental things or like styling. And that might take the dance in a different way than the lead originally expected. But he knows how to follow her. He knows how to play off of it and to say like, oh, wow, I didn't think that she would do that, and I love it. And that's going to make me create this other move or this other direction. And so a good lead knows how to follow his follow in that sense. Another thing for me that I find really important is that when I was first learning to dance, I felt like there was this insinuation that a lead is like maneuvering the follow around, like with his arms, putting her in the place that she needs to go. And he's like doing all the, I want to say leg work, but it kind of feels a bit like arm work. And I really don't like that in some classes that's the impression that I got about dancing, like when I was first starting, because it's the opposite of what I think it should be. Like a lead is not pushing and pulling the follow, because then I, as the follow, start pushing and pulling back, trying to figure it out, and it doesn't feel smooth. It doesn't feel good to the body. It doesn't feel good in the dance. But now, after all this time, like I've realized that actually the dance comes from the lead not pushing or pulling, and it doesn't come from his arms. It's actually coming from his own body. And I've heard people say that, over time, like in classes that I felt like were more in tune with this idea, they would say like the lead needs to use his body to lead. But I want to take it a bit further than that, because I don't think it's just that it's coming from his core and it's, that is part of it instead of his arms. And we would learn how to dance, like we would practice dancing without using the arms, so that we would make sure we're using our core and our torso for lead and follow. But I think that it's actually more accurate, or like a better dance for me, and I think for the lead, when we see that the lead isn't leading with his arms or it coming from his torso. It's also that he is, like, the leading is coming because the lead is moving his body. So even in a basic salsa step, or if you think of bachata, or like in zouk, like there's a lot of things that we do as follow as a reaction to a lead, but it's because the lead is doing something with his body. Like if he's doing a cross-body lead, he's not taking us with his arms. And yeah, he's using his core and his body so that he's not using his arms, but it's actually because he's creating a space for us to walk through. Like he's moving his body so that we move. And I feel like in turns and in, a lot of zouk movements where we're like opening up our chest and stuff, that's because the lead's giving us space to do that. But he's giving us space by moving his body. And in whatever way, we are connected. So we feel that or see it or sense it, and we respond to that. So I feel like there are so many ways that the lead can follow his follow. It's not literally following her around, obviously, on the dance floor, and it's not switching places. It's not that she has to now suddenly become the leader and he's like following whatever she wants to do. He's still leading. He's still doing the masculine energy, like deciding and inviting, but it's more of an invitation and guiding rather than a pushing, pulling, yanking. And he's doing it because he knows what to do with his body. And because we're connected to him, we respond. And the way that we respond, I feel like the leader then follows that. Like I remember taking some classes in Buenos Aires where I was taking some private lessons for tango, and there were some things where like a kick or like a boleo or a ocho or something were guided. And then at some point, it was my choice on some of the movements how much I wanted to accentuate the movement. If I'm given the space to make that choice, or to like add little embellishments or something, like it's my choice how I do that. And that is something that the lead can play off of, and he can respond. And so he's following my lead, but it's not leading. I'm not like suddenly taking over or anything like that. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And this video, I don't want to say is all the job, like I don't want it to sound like it's just, about a good lead and it's only the job of the lead to make the dance good. It's also, there are things that a good follow needs to do. And this has to do with her tapping into also her masculine energy, because we have both. In my last video, I was talking about how we both have masculine and feminine energies in us. So the follow, when she responds to something, I feel like a good follow responds. She's an active follow. She's not like, okay, you do all the work and I'm just going to be like dragged along and do whatever you say or whatever. She decides like, okay, maybe I'm going to create this little embellishment in this response of mine, or maybe I am going to make my leg go a little bit higher than what other people might have done. Or maybe if the lead does a turn with me, like I decide what texture I'm going to step around in the turn, and he can play off of that, and I'm responding because I'm an active follow. So I think a good follow is an active follow, and that's part of her bringing in her masculine energy, where she's making decisions and she's still being active, and the lead is following to bring in some of his feminine energy to tap into like what would make the dance fluid, and how she's responding and like taking that intuitive feeling, like the intuition and stuff we often connect with this feminine energy, like responding, being intuitive, and the lead has to have some of that in order for the dance to work as well. And I feel like this is so reflective of the relationships that we have outside of dance, like in our romantic relationships, or even sometimes friendships or family relationships, but especially in romantic relationships, like a partnership. I was saying in my last video, if there's not the polarity between masculine and feminine energies, the partnership kind of fizzles out. Like the passion is gone. It kind of dies away because that polarity is needed. And I feel like in the dance, the polarity is needed, but there's also this mixture of us like recognizing that I, as someone who identifies with a more feminine energy, type of energy, I still have masculine energy in me. And a masculine energy person that identifies as a masculine energy person more dominantly also has feminine. And to tap into the other side of it within ourselves helps the dance, but also our relationships come into this like more full, deep, fun, enjoyment. Like it's more, we're more able to enjoy the dance, but also our relationships when we do this. And I see this a lot in relationships around me, and even the way that I relate to a guy that I might be, potentially, or in a romantic relationship with. Like, if the person is doing too much, like pulling or pushing, metaphorically, instead of following the female, like following what I need and listening to my needs, then I feel defensive, or I get triggered, or I don't feel safe or comfortable. But I also need to respond to a male. Like if he's doing something that's very helpful or thoughtful, or going out and doing masculine energy things, I need to respond and say, like, I love that you did this and this makes me feel so good. And like, there's like this appreciation aspect of it in the response. We can't be passive followers, and we can't be passive as dancers, and we can't be passive. Well, we can be, but it doesn't make for a good relationship as a passive female in a romantic relationship dynamic. I love, again, how I'm seeing these concepts that I've learned in dance in my everyday life. And it teaches me so much how to relate to other people, how to relate to myself. I know when I'm like pushing or pulling myself, like if I'm being pushy or pulling, I now recognize, wait a second, like I'm not being I'm throwing too much of my masculine energy out there in this relationship or in this dynamic, and I need to respond more, and or maybe even just say like, this is why I'm doing this. This is the way I feel, and it would help me if you did this, or try to make the other person understand why I'm responding that way. And I love it when guys will be very like, what do you need? Like, what, asking me like, what do you like? Or, you know, lately it's like, or for the past few years, I guess I could say, you know, in the dating scene, it's all about like love languages. Like, what is your love language? And I like that someone wants to know how I like to be shown love, and I want to know how that person wants to be shown love. And to me, this has a lot to do. It's very relatable to this idea of like what makes a good lead and what makes a good follow. And every day I get amazed that something else from dance is teaching me something new about my life. I just wanted to share this. Let me know what you all think, and I will talk to you again soon.